Hi, welcome to Ask the Manager. We have a different show today. We have, of course, our town manager, Kevin Mizikar, and our chief of police, Kevin Anderson, and not Kevin, but Ryan Bradley, who is a sergeant, and he is in charge of the police boat and drives the police boat.
Yes.
Do other police officers?
Yeah, we have a slew of officers on the roster for patrolling the lake. I more oversee the scheduling and training and such, but we have many officers in charge of that.
So you don't get on the lake yourself as much?
Not as much. More of the patrolmen get out there.
Yeah.
More than I, but.
And I could tell because you don't have much of a tan.
I am also Irish too, so.
Wear your sunscreen.
Yeah.
So, what's it like being a police officer on the lake?
Well, it's definitely a nice town, and being on the lake has its benefits as well, getting the sea breeze and such. But it does get pretty busy, especially peak season. You get a lot of out-of-towners and bringing their jet skis, and it can get really busy, especially around the holidays too.
So this is a pretty big lake. There's one Shrewsbury police officer, one Worcester police officer, and the environmental police.
So we have the marine boat, and then we have a jet ski also, and then Worcester also has a boat, and then occasionally environmental police will come as well.
So when it's busy, you have more than one police officer at times on the lake?
Definitely. We'll try to have at least two on the boat, and then for weekends and busier days, we'll have somebody on the jet ski as well. So we will be able to get over to Flint Pond as well, because there's a lot of jet skis over there.
Tell us about that. How did that come about?
So it became a community issue stemming back from last year with the increase of jet skis in the area. And with the Lake Quincy Commission, we had a subcommittee on discussing how we would mitigate the issues with the jet skis. We purchased a jet ski for the police department, and Worcester Police also has a smaller boat that they put over on Flint Pond as well. So now that we have the jet ski, we're able to get over to Flint Pond. The larger boat can't fit on that side of the lake, so now we're able to enforce the jet skis, and Worcester is also able to enforce the jet skis over there as well.
So, Chief, do you find that they're able to have better control in recent times compared to a few years back?
So I think where it all started was when I first interviewed for Chief in April of 2020. It was middle of the pandemic, which we thought was going to last maybe a few more weeks. And as we all know, it lasted several years. So during that year, what happened was a lot of people bought boats and jet skis, and they were spending a significant amount of time on the lake. So at that point, we had to come up with a plan of how to address this. So we came up with a 3-step plan: training, education, and enforcement. And so that's what we did. We trained more boat operators. So now we went from having 4 to now we have 20. And then last year, 20. Yes, we have 20 boat operators.
That's good.
And last year we purchased jet ski, because there's a lot of places on the lake that we just can't get to. So right now we have 10 that are certified operators on the jet ski, and we'll be adding 10 more. And our goal is to have all boat operators, jet ski operators as well.
Good. So, Kevin, what precipitated you being willing to go to a jet ski?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a logical thing, but
Yeah.
sometimes town managers' budgets aren't necessarily.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think back to Sergeant Bradley's first comment. It's an asset of the community. The lake is. When Chief Anderson came in and described the challenges that are associated with Flint Pond and why we weren't able to effectively patrol. It's one of my key duties is to make sure that departments have the tools and the resources that they need to be able to, in this instance, provide for public safety. So, I think the biggest hesitancy that many people could, I think, kind of understand is, well, a jet ski seems like a toy, right? It doesn't necessarily seem like a tool or a resource that you would, look at as a tool or a resource, but it really is, right? Because of, I think it's the Stringer Dam, or is it getting under Route 20?
Exactly.
We can't get the big boat over there, so that's really what it is. It's a tool. It's like a motorcycle. It has its role in law enforcement, and that's visibility and being able to get into areas that a vehicle or a boat in this instance just can't get to. So when you really take a step back and say, how's jet ski going to be used, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's really important, and I think it's been providing dividends already.
Yeah, absolutely. The jet ski is able to have two jet ski operators on it, so we can safely pull over either a boat or a jet ski. And just to give you an idea, we had last year, our total calls for service on the lake were 526. This year, to this date, is 517. And that's a credit to the officers going out there, being proactive and being on the jet ski, being able to get to areas that we couldn't get to before.
And residents having the confidence that you're going to respond too.
Exactly.
You know, they're more apt to call because they know they're going to get a result, and they can rely on you. So, Sergeant, how long have you been on the police force?
About 8.5 years now.
And how long have you been on the lake?
About 2 years, and then I've been a sergeant for about 3 years.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
So, when you're not dealing with lake issues, do you year round? You know, wintertime, you probably have a lot less,
Yeah,
but do you
not
have
so
to
much
respond?
not so much during the winter. Occasionally there's issues with people falling through the ice or something like that, but that's not generally the lake patrol issues.
It's more of a fire
More
department
of a fire
issue.
issue, yeah.
Rescue.
Exactly.
So, what's it like being on the lake? It's good to know there's more than one police officer on the lake, but you know that you have a finite number of people there to help you in that immediate
Exactly.
time. More can respond, but what's it like in
Yeah,
those
so
types
compared
of
to the
situations?
road, when you make a car stop on the road, you can have other officers, other cruisers pull up and assist you. But when you're out on the lake, you have maybe just your partner with you, and if you need backup, it's taking a whole lot longer for either Worcester to get on their boat or another avenue. So it's a lot more difficult in that aspect.
So you have to really rely on
Your own skills and
your own skills and your partner's skills
Exactly.
to make that happen. Do you find that people on the lake in boats and watercraft, do they respect authority?
It's hit or miss. Sometimes you get some out of towners who show no respect at all. But I mean, if we have any violation, we can get them off of the lake and try and control the environment in that aspect.
How often do you have to do that?
So far this year, we've had close to 50 incidents where we had to kick somebody off of the lake for either negligent operation, they're driving erratically with a jet ski, or they don't have a registered vehicle on the lake.
So we hear the word jet ski a lot in this conversation so far. Is that the biggest culprit? Do people like get on jet skis and think it's party time and
I think it
more
is,
than in
yeah.
a regular boat, or
Because of the power that they have, and they're a lot louder than a boat typically because they have the high pitch engine, and so it gets the community's attention more. And the jet skis, they fly down the lake too, so they're more the bigger culprits in this aspect right now.
so do you find more incidences with the jet ski versus a boat?
I would say so, definitely this season.
And I heard that there were people trying to use their boats as cabin cruisers and stay on them overnight. Does that put the police on the water after dark?
I haven't heard of that. The boat is out there after dark because you need to have lights on the boat. So we go out looking for jet skis that don't have any lights, make sure that they're off the lake. So they're out there throughout the evening, but I haven't heard anyone sleeping on the lake.
No,
Yeah.
that was at a conservation commission meeting.
Yeah.
So how is it? Do you find that the Worcester police have a bigger presence and are more helpful today than they were in years past? Probably, I don't know, either one of you could answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that. So we worked on, over the last 2 years, we worked on creating a task force. So that's the Shrewsbury Police, Worcester Police, Environmental Police, and State Police. And we work as a team to enforce the lake and as well as the boat ramps. So on a regular weekend, we may have our boat out there, our jet ski, Worcester will have their boat, and Environmental will have a jet ski and a boat. So we've really increased enforcement quite a bit.
So that's a lot of support that just wasn't there a few years back.
Exactly.
So that there's a commitment from all of the organizations. That's good. What do you find to be the biggest issue on the lake?
I would definitely think it's the jet skis.
Jet ski
But
speed, jet skis.
more of the erratic operation. They're doing spins or they're flying, but we've been able to enforce that a whole lot more now with our added jet ski. So I think we're definitely mitigating the issue.
Well, that's good to know.
Donna, can I ask
Sure.
them a question? So, Sergeant Bradley, maybe can you describe what it's like to do a boat-to-boat stop on the water
Yeah.
versus like what
Yeah.
it looks like? I mean, I think everyone's familiar, not myself personally, of course, with what a
course
motor
not.
vehicle stop looks like. But you know, what's it
Right.
like? How is it different? You know, what are the risks? What are the benefits to, if there are
So
any?
I don't know if you've been on the boat, but you keep moving with the waves and with the current. So if you're making a stop, it's very difficult to stay near the boat, but also not bump into the boat, and handling their credentials, their ID or something like that, and maintaining the boat in one spot while you're writing a citation. That's why it's good to have an additional officer on the boat as well, but it's definitely a whole lot different than just a regular car stop on land.
So if it's kind of you're just trying to figure out what's going on, do you board their boat? Do you not board their boat?
No, generally we'll stay on our boat.
Okay.
We'll keep some distance from their boat because they aren't always educated on how to drive their own vessel.
Sure.
So sometimes they could come close to our boat, and we want to make sure we don't get any contact there. So
Okay, interesting.
We've actually, to touch on that a little bit, we've actually changed our operations.
Okay.
For years, we would have the boat operator be solo. And so what we learned over the years was it's kind of a public safety issue for the officer, asking someone who you're going to give a citation to assist you
Sure.
with holding the boat. So we always have two officers on the boat if possible.
That's good. So, who does the inspections of the boats that are coming on the lake?
So Shrewsbury PDs, they do. If we have somebody at the ramp, we can do a safety inspection before they get on. Also, while they're on the lake, we can do safety inspections if we see a boat that looks unsafe. Worcester PD does it as well, or environmental does it frequently as well on the ramps.
And have you been able to stop boats from even getting in the water, or jet skis from even getting in the water at the ramp? I mean,
Yes,
you have a
yes.
system for that?
Yes, so we have an officer who will be at the ramps on busy weekends, and they'll check for safety equipment, make sure they have fire extinguishers, make sure they have everything they need, life preservers. If they don't have a specific type of equipment, then they don't get allowed onto the lake. Period.
And to get on the lake is not cheap, correct?
I don't think there's a fee right now.
There's going to be a fee for the boat ramp, right?
There's a parking fee, right?
There is
$20, I believe.
$20 parking fee.
$20 parking fee for the Flint Pond, Oak Island boat ramp that's staffed. I think we staff Corazini too on the
We do.
weekends.
We try to, but
Yeah.
we don't always
Yeah.
have the ability to staff that.
And has there been more bad action at the Flint Pond ramp compared to the Corazini ramp, or is it pretty much equal?
I would say this year with the jet ski, it's significantly less. We had quite a few incidents last year at Oak Island,
Yeah.
and this year we've been able to really work on that by doing proactive patrols with the jet ski on Flint Pond, and also we do parking walks with police officers. So they'll get out of their cruiser and they'll walk Oak Island and just explain to people the laws of the lake. And what we also did this year, we added the rules in 3 different languages: English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So those folks that are here enjoying the lake, they'll understand the rules better.
Yeah, we've been trying to staff the parking lots more regularly, and we do that through the recreation department. And I just want to go back and touch on fees. The boat ramps are technically considered state property, so we are only allowed to set the fees to the level that the state permits us to. And there is a challenge with that we've been trying to work with the state on, because $20 per boat, on an average day, sometimes we're barely covering the cost. If it's a hit or miss day, it may rain, it may not. We're not even covering the cost of the boat attendant employee, but it's really critical. So we've actually explored, do we go to something more like an automated parking system where an officer could patrol through and, kind of do parking enforcement, which we don't anywhere else in town. But if you don't have the printout ticket in your car, or if your car isn't in the database of the registration system, then, you would get a ticket from that. But so we are trying to, figure out the best way to manage the boat dock. We always talk about this. Certainly, it's not an exemption for everyone, but I would say from what I've heard, most of the challenges on the lake come from people that put their boat in the water versus the residents that live on the lake that respect their neighbors' docks and what a no-wake zone is and all those things. So parking and enforcement before folks get on the water is a point that we'll continue to try to bring our best efforts to, and we're considering automation and a number of things right now, but we do have to work with the state.
All right, so here's the question. Why do the people that live on the lake have to pay a dock fee?
There are regulations associated with the dock, so the review of that on an annual basis, and their original application and all that, it's a cost recovery thing. It's not a profit or
It's not a for-profit event.
Yeah, and I mean, in some ways it does help with the cost of, I mean, it's far dwarfed by the amount that it costs to patrol the
Right.
lake, but it does help with that a little bit.
Do you find that you have issues with people who are in their own homes on the water, or is
While they're on the lake, you're saying?
yeah?
We generally don't have a whole lot of issues with residents out on the lake. They're usually responsible boat owners.
And they're the ones who are saying, "Please help us."
Right. Yeah.
So what's an average number on a busy weekend? What's an average number of boats or watercraft that are on the lake at a time?
It can get very busy, especially around like 4th of July. It gets packed on the lake, but
Yeah.
it's hit or miss. Yeah.
Now there was also something about needing markers or buoys, and there's a shortage of
The
buoys.
safety buoys, yeah, we ordered them, but they're all back ordered currently in the whole state, so we
How do
can't
you
get
back order
additional.
buoys?
I'm not sure.
I mean, what in today's
Yeah.
world, what's not back on?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I guess so. So, are there more regulations that are needed, or do you think there's a sufficient number of regulations?
I think it's sufficient at the moment. It seems to be our tactics are working to control the issue right now. So
Okay, so do you know what the lake management plan is? What is the lake management plan?
I think the lake management plan is more of an environmental plan associated with water quality and
Lowering the lake for the winter and
lowering
things
the
like
lake
that?
for the winter, managing the invasive species that come through. So it's more on the conservation and environmental side of things. At town meeting, we of course fund on average about $35,000 a year. It's not all dedicated to Lake Quinsigamond for water quality. It's for all streams and water bodies within the community. Worcester and Grafton do contribute similarly as well. We certainly still have the most consistent and highest level of funding for the lake, but I think Worcester shares a similar amount of shoreline, but we've always kind of had a more leading role than they've had when it comes to the lake.
And across the state, a lot of waterways have had to close down their beaches because of the water quality related to the weather, etc. And we had that at the north end of the lake for a brief period of time. It was amazing to me that I was at the ocean one day, and it was at the end of the day. We were at Salisbury State Park, and they were telling us you couldn't go in the water anymore. And we thought, oh, there must be a shark or whatever. No, it was the water quality
Oh, wow.
at the ocean. And I thought, so the ponds and lakes don't stand a chance if that's happening
Right.
on the ocean, because we just never see that.
Yeah, I think generally speaking, with the way that the drainage off of 290 versus Route 9 or Route 20 works, there is a greater impact of roadway runoff into the north part of the lake, and it certainly does get much more narrow up there. This year we've had some water quality issues in the north end of the lake, but honestly, it's all dependent on what washes into the lake from storm runoff, and we've had less issues this summer, at least that I'm aware of, than we have in the past few. It seemed like every day for a couple of years, or every week for a couple of years, we were having issues in the summer, but hasn't been the case this year.
So, speaking of runoff off the three highways, state highways, is there anything that can be done to stop that runoff?
I think if the way I understand things, when they rebuilt the Burns Bridge, they did a really good job of mitigating stormwater runoff, at least trying to clean the water, some of it. 290, if you go underneath it, you can just see the storm drain goes to a 2-foot long pipe and then it dumps straight down. I do think there could be improvements made to that. Mass DOT has significant maintenance that's going to be done on 290, and that's something that I will take from this conversation and see if they can look into when they do that. They have to do the joints and connection points on the plates in the bridge soon, so we can, through Rep Kane, try to get them to do that.
That'd be wonderful because, I mean, the 290 bridge is closer to our wells.
It is.
So that's also an issue, not just how it contaminates the lake, but how it impacts.
I imagine it being a bridge, the challenge would be piping in the wintertime. If it's going to freeze solid for a couple weeks, then they're not going to want to do that type of work. I don't know if there's a solution to it or not. But even with that, it does get the, road salt runoff into the lake and stuff in the winter.
Right. Yeah. Do you find that there's a lot of litter on the lake?
Not in the water, no.
No.
You do see some on the shoreline, but not throughout the whole lake. Yeah.
I noticed in the regulations through the Lake Quinsigamon Commission regulations, there's a piece about your boat. Certain boats have to have toilet facilities, and disposal has to be. I mean, they've really covered everything.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you saw much of people using the lake as their toilet.
No, I haven't, not directly now.
Well, that's good to know. I know, because we don't need that. And then we've had the issues with, and I have to say, Worcester's sewerage into our lake. It can happen on our side at any time. We know that. But are there like major projects to address the vulnerabilities of all of those types of accidents?
Continued efforts, I think, is the best way to describe it. And Worcester is taking it really seriously, and I know that because that negatively impacts us, because we do have interconnection agreements with our sewer system with Worcester, and they're not interested in allowing us to increase or expand flows in their direction until they address their issues, which is the right answer for the lake. Hinders economic development a little bit for us, but they are taking it seriously. They're not done with the work yet. They've spent probably millions of dollars on the worst part, which was associated with what's known as the Whitla pump station off of Whitla Street, I think, in Worcester. So it's an ongoing effort. We have this conversation a lot about how the lake is the low spot, and it's easy to flow sewer down to the low spot and then pump it out to the treatment. So it is a challenge.
This is a good one for you. Do you find spots where the homeless people live along the lake while you're in the boat?
Not on our shoreline, no.
No. Was there an issue with them being on the bridge using, I've driven by in the morning, and it looks like they've had a party there all night.
Oh, are you talking about underneath the
benches.
bridge?
No, on the benches.
On the benches, yeah.
And I thought, there are people that walk across to get to work, and I just wondered if people were okay with, passing by. Not because homeless people are bad, but a lot of homeless people tend to have issues with mental illness. Not all of them, but to be able to pass them and be comfortable passing. So I didn't know if you saw that along the shores anywhere. No, huh?
So, not on the shore, no. I do see them on the bridge as well, yeah.
Donna, can we talk about the boat a little bit more specifically? Because
Chief,
I know that's going to be in your capital asset improvement plan in the years to come. So maybe you and the sergeant could talk a little bit about what boat we have, how it works, what we're going to need in the future. It's not the most expensive capital asset that we have, but it's important. We only have one, right? So we replaced the motor, but maybe you can talk about the boat itself and where we're at in its existing life and things like that.
Sure. The boat's about 20 years old.
Already?
And we did get a new motor, and that took almost 2 years for it to come in. So we have to prepare long term. That boat has been used quite a bit. It needs to be replaced. And with the additional traffic over the past several years and additional wear and tear on it, because we're out there longer, we're out there patrolling more, so we will need a new boat. And a boat to replace that is about $180,000.
And so do you think that'll be in this upcoming budget season? Is that something?
I'll be asking for it.
Yeah, I
Sure.
think so. And we used American Rescue Plan Act funds to replace the motor on it. You know, this one that we've got, and it's an outboard motor, so it's my understanding we could use that on the new boat. You know, if we deem that to be the best. I don't know if we'll keep the old boat in service for a couple years, and it just makes sense to get a new motor with the new boat again. But you know, we'll have it as a backup if nothing else.
You can have the old boat as a backup, or you could sell it, right?
Yeah, correct.
We could sell it. You're not going to get much money for it, so
Really?
I would prefer to keep it and have 2 boats out there on
Yep.
the busy weekends.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're going to have to consider is we realized when we were looking for a new boat that it won't fit in the boathouse.
A new boat won't.
A new boat, even the smallest one we can get.
And that's a fairly new boathouse, correct?
Oh, it's more
than 20 years old.
It's more than 20 years old. It's
Time
older than
flies.
you think.
Yeah.
But that is what we realized a couple months back, that even the smallest boat that we get that we think is best for this lake, we would have to do an addition to the
So
boathouse.
you can't get a boat to fit the boathouse. You got to get the boat and deal with
Get the
the
right boat.
appropriate housing for it.
We need to have a...
But this is a joke.
Yeah.
That's an old fire story. You buy a bigger fire truck.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I was going to bring that up next. It happened in Shrewsbury. Do you see when you're on the lake, or do you notice like that there's contamination coming from homes? I mean, you're on the water, so you would see if things were happening.
Like drainage from the home.
Drainage or- yeah.
No, I don't think so. No.
Well, that's good to know. And so what kind of a boat do you think you'd want?
Well, the specific boat we would get, it would be a couple feet longer, and it has a side entrance, which is very important. And that is important to rescue people, bring people in on the boat much easier. Right now, you have to lift them up over the boat to bring them in through the back. So it should have a side entrance for emergencies.
Have you done many rescues?
Only in training. Yeah.
Only in training.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. One issue that always comes up with residents along the lake is the loud music. Has that continued, or do you find that that's less now than it had been?
I don't think it's increased at all. It is occasional on hot weekends. You get some party boats out there, but we try and quickly turn it down.
Yeah. There's also another regulation about not feeding animals and ducks and so forth. Do people come on the lake to feed animals?
I haven't seen that. No.
Oh. And do you observe the eagles in their nest down at the other end?
Yeah, and occasionally people do try and get onto the island, but they're not allowed on the property,
And
so you
it's-
got to kick them off.
And,
too.
and they know that. The people on the boats know they're not supposed to go on that island.
They should know,
Posted?
yeah. It's
Is it
posted.
posted?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to get a close picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, until the eagle comes down and
Yeah.
puts their claws in them. Anyways, what about the boat parade? Do you know, do they talk about plans for a boat parade, and does that change the mood of the lake on the day
I
that
haven't
they
heard of
have
one
that?
recently.
No. Oh.
Planned.
It's normally the lake
We had that a couple years
a
back.
couple years ago.
Yeah, there was no
Well,
problem.
fall.
It
Right.
looked like fun. It
Yeah.
looked like a lot of fun, but I didn't know how it impacted everything else around, because doesn't that happen on Labor Day weekend? And I wondered, with holiday
Yeah.
weekends, more boats on the lake. If
My
they-
recollection was a little bit later in the fall because I was in a boat and it was awful cold.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it was a little later.
Yeah.
And we would put more additional personnel on, make sure everybody's safe.
Good. Am I forgetting anything to ask you about the boat?
I don't think so.
What kind of a boat did you say you want besides bigger?
Yeah,
Another
I
Boston
can't.
whaler?
Honestly, I can't remember that name. We did look at Boston Whaler, but I think we're actually looking at a different
A different kind?
boat.
So what would the solution be for the boathouse? I know making it bigger, but like, is the location fine? I think we added an additional dock for the jet ski. How's that working out? And what would a new boathouse look like?
So, in a perfect world, I would like a boathouse that on the first level would be able to hold 2 boats and a jet ski, and a room on the second floor for training for the boat operators, so we can hold those crewman course. that
Now,
all
would you like the
operators
design
go
of this
through.
boathouse to match the police station?
I don't know, maybe you could be on the committee.
We'll see. If I'm not forgetting anything about lake issues, I just would like to ask you about the police station.
Yes.
I joke about it, but I get real sensitive when people think that the police station is too big. And too big, it shocks me when they say it. But when people drive down the street, first of all, they're seeing a good part of a garage. So the garage makes the building appear bigger. Our former police station was so incredibly small and was outgrown so many years ago that I think going from one to the other, people are like, wow, what did we need such a big police station for? How would you comment to that?
So I would say that, that building was designed for 50-year build out. As we grow, we would just grow in.
You have room.
We have room for additional workstations. But one of the things we do is we operate a 21st century policing model. And one of those pillars is training and educating officers. So a good portion of that building is for training and educating our officers. And I think that's the most important thing with policing today.
And when you talk about training and educating, there's a place within the building for shooting practice?
There is.
Right.
So we have a training room that can be used by us, can also be used by the rest of the town. And it's been used quite a bit. It's getting a lot of use. And then we have an additional training room for de-escalation training. And then we have a Milo facility, and that's multiple interactive learning objective room. And that's where you're immersed in a real life scenario that's a video. And you go in, you shut the lights off, you're immersed right in it. They have a replica firearm and pepper spray, and how you act and how you respond to that video, the Milo instructor can change that accordingly. So we have a wonderful training facility.
In the
there.
cells, you had to put in more cells than to meet standards.
Yep.
So there are things within the station that have to meet standards, building standards for police stations.
Exactly.
Cells for females, males, and juveniles, correct?
Exactly.
And you had to put in special restrooms. So you had to make sure there was space for the, specific restrooms.
Sure.
Am I forgetting anything? You have a room where people could actually go for roll call now, and they're not all jammed in. They can actually do their job. And the detectives have a space where they can do their work, and they're not crammed in a closet up on the second floor.
Yes.
You have a legitimate place for storage of evidence, an evidence room.
Yes.
And that has to meet certain criteria. So by the time the building is planned and you say we're going to do this for 50 years out because we're not going to turn around in 10 years and have to put an addition on the station, all of that was done. So therefore we have this beautiful building that's going to be a significant piece of property for the town for at least 50 years.
Yeah, and the important thing about that building is folks have to realize that building is built to meet or exceed accreditation standards. And that's one thing we want to do as a police department going forward. And that'll be a great building for that.
So speaking of accreditation standards, are there accreditation standards for lake patrol? If your lake is 3 miles long, you should have X, Y, and Z, or they haven't gotten that
They
specific?
have not. Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and then I know you've added a significant number of police officers over the last several years, but you've done it in steps, in increments, because it takes time to train them, it takes people to train them, and so with all of that, but it's to meet the size of the town and how we've grown, because we were so far behind. We're still behind, aren't we?
We're still. So in 2020, we had about 1.5 officers per 1,000. Nationally, it's 2.2 per 1,000 residents, and right now we're at about 1.6. So we're definitely growing, going in the right direction. It's just that to get an officer on the road, it takes about 2 years. So if the town approved me to hire a police officer, it would take about 2 years before we go through the background checks, they get an academy, they get trained, and then field training. So we're always trying to catch up with the growth of the town.
The growth of the town, retirements, attrition.
Yeah.
So.
And Donna, the other thing is we're unique. We're in Central Mass. We border the second largest city in New England. We're 41 miles west of Boston. We have 4 major highways that go through town. And as the other towns grow around us, public safety is unique. Our calls for service increase. And then you add on top of that we have a recreational lake, a 7-mile recreational lake. We're unique. We're not. It's a tough it's tough to have comparable communities to Shrewsbury because we're so unique and where we're located.
So, do you just set like this? I'm going to ask for 3 this year and 3 next year. How do you do that? How do you figure the number?
So what I do is I have, as budget season comes up, I have all the lieutenants, their commanders, division commanders, give me an analysis of their particular department and what they feel their need is, and that's how we decide where we need officers. Currently, this year's goal is to add a traffic division. Most towns our size and where we're located have a traffic division. Currently, we don't. So that's a need for the town. Traffic's one of our #1 complaints, and I think having a full-time traffic division would be great for the town.
I'll probably be the first one to get a ticket because I'm going to complain about this on TV. But if you sit in any intersection, whether it's Shrewsbury, Worcester, anywhere, you can count 2 to 4 cars going through a red light every cycle. And I sit there and I'll go, how did that car, where did it come from? It's amazing we don't have more accidents. So that traffic division would address a lot of that. And I've noticed that there have lately been cruises with cars pulled over and they're close to intersections, so I'm assuming they went through the red light.
Sure.
So anyways, just my little public service announcement.
And to touch on that, just to touch on that a little bit, there's a couple officers on a traffic stop. Traffic stops are inherently dangerous, and it's best to have 2 officers on that stop because the officer never knows who they're pulling.
What they're walking up to.
Exactly.
And you have a social worker.
We do.
And the
mental health clinician. Yeah.
And so is that mental health clinician LICSW? What's her credential?
Yeah, she's a licensed mental health clinician.
Okay. So how is that working out?
Oh, that's going great.
Is one enough for your department?
One's enough. Yeah, some communities share a mental health clinician. I think our size, 1 is good for us.
Yeah.
If we shared it with another community, I think that gets a little difficult managing that. But I think 1's enough for now, and it's going very well.
Did we just lose our work dog?
We did.
So what's the plan for that?
So Hunter passed last week peacefully at his home. And we're going to do on Tuesday, we'll put that announcement out. We're just making the final arrangements. We're going to do an escort. We're going to escort Officer Chesner and Hunter's ashes from Northborough Vet Clinic, and we're going to go by the police station. We'll let the public know.
That's so sad. And it's probably more sad for me because my son has had 2 work dogs in his career. But the connection for the police officer that has the dog, the connection to that dog is beyond your family pet. It's just amazing. And it does, I don't know, did his dog go home with him?
Yes, they do. I mean, it's a true partner. It's a partner on the road, it's a partner at home, and it's a big commitment for an officer to be the canine handler. And that dog does go home. They spend 6 months in an academy together. The dog comes home every night with you, so it's like a family member.
So there'll be another dog coming?
Yeah, that would be the plan.
And that's just a big project in itself.
That's so you end up losing an officer for about 6 months. They go to a special academy with the canine, and then there's a selection process. And that'd be very lengthy, because as I said earlier, that's a big commitment.
It is.
That's an animal that you're taking that dog home.
Right.
There's a lot of responsibility with that.
Right. And now we also have a comfort dog.
We do. Blue.
Tell us about Blue.
Great dog. It's a poodle mix, lab mix, I think. Great demeanor. A great dog. It's been a huge hit. We had the 2 police academies this summer, and the kids really loved the dog. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good addition to the department.
And how is this dog used?
It's going to be primarily assigned to the school resource officer, and we can use it throughout any event in town or anything for the police department. If we had a major event and some folks were having a difficult time, we have a mental health clinician that could assist, and we also have a comfort dog that we could bring out to assist the folks.
So you're growing with animals, offices, boats. I mean, it's not a simple type this is the structure of a police department anymore. It's changed a lot, and a lot of what you're telling us relates to the community.
It is. It's a lot of training, and it's a lot of education for folks, but it's going very well.
So you have issues with the high school expansion, the DPW expansion or reproduction. You have the cemetery plans. You have a lot that needs to be addressed, big projects. How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, so a lot of those things are in full swing right now. I'll start with the high school. So we submitted the statement of interest back in April up to the MSBA. It's solely in their hands at this point in time. We should know somewhere around November or December whether we're accepted into the program, and that's really the gating point where we'd start to scope out a project. The project application is for an addition to the high school, and we've learned from so many projects over the years that's really this would be like a 6-year total cycle. So starting in April of 2024, we'd likely be opening that school for the 2029-2030 school year, that addition. So that's what we're considering. We know there's been overcrowding challenges at the high school, and while population isn't expected to rapidly grow from school age standpoint, it is already over the capacity at the school. So that's what we're really looking to address, and then trying to find opportunities, given the lack of opportunities with vocational education, to provide some opportunities for students here, since we're unable to send them to Aspen anymore. So that's that project. We do have what we're calling the Municipal Facilities Optimization Program. We're looking at the heart of the project being replacing or refurbishing the structures at 211 South Street. So there's 2 buildings there, the water and sewer garage, which is in really rough shape, and the highway garage. Both of those are early 1970s, late 1960s buildings. They've had some minor cosmetic renovations in the past, but we need to address that. The good part of that, in some ways, is that we can share the cost between the water and sewer business rates and utility rates, and the tax rate. So it's probably going to be about a 70-30 split. 70% would come from the utilities, and that's been a part of the plan. We're in 5-year funding cycles for water and sewer, and those have all been built in, so it wouldn't be anything extraordinary on those bills. We've committed to not increasing bills by more than 5% in a given year. So the reason it's broadened out just beyond South Street is because we are trying to opportunistically address the space constraints at the town hall. So we're considering, while we're doing the work at 211 South Street, would we have the opportunity to build out administrative offices there for DPW or provide some relief to the town hall? There will be work that gets done on the town hall because we need to do some hazmat abatement. We need to get some sprinklers in the building. And, things like the restrooms haven't been touched now. And, we're getting pretty close to 30 years. 2027 would be 30 years since that building had any significant work done on the first floor. So we need to address some things like that. So we've hired an owner's project manager and an architect, and they have a really narrow time frame. We're trying to get a project shaped up no later than the fall town meeting, which will be in November. So we're full speed ahead on that, trying to minimize any impact on the tax rate. I don't think we'll need a debt exclusion for the project, but that really depends on what the total scope of work is. You always find something that you didn't anticipate. So we're just looking to make some modernization. Again, 1997, for me, I'd love it to be a little closer than it actually is, but we're really getting to be 30 years before since any investment was made in that building. So, and one of the other big things that's out there, Donna, that Selco continues to try to find a home for a single site operation. And so they continue to look into that. So there's a lot of moving pieces. Does DPW administration go to 211 South Street? Does Selco leave the building? Do both of those happen? Our main goal is to minimize the amount of work that we have to do, or the overall cost of the work that we have to do, without shortchanging ourselves in the town, because we all know that if we do something 10 years from now, it's going to be a lot more expensive. That's why we built the police station for 50 years, and that's why we need to make sure we do adequate maintenance and renovation work at this point when it's needed.
I'm sitting here listening to you, and I can't help but look at the water. And I'm thinking we should do the show on the other side of the lake so we can see Shrewsbury in the pictures. Anyways.
Should we start over?
So yeah, we should start over. Nice breeze. We're lucky today.
Yeah.
The UPS facility. The big part of that with the planning board was the traffic study seemed pretty weak.
I would agree with you. Unfortunately, we've been trying to work with the developer and Mass DOT to really ensure it's a massive facility, and we can't undercount the traffic impacts that are going to be. And I just want to be really clear. So when I look at that project and I compare it to the Clinton Street project, I feel that the developer on the Clinton Street project really went through every permitting process, traffic study and review, and was really a true partner. And we need to continue to work with the developer of UPS to do that, because we're not seeing that level of diligence in the products they're producing. I know that residents still have a lot of concerns with the Clinton Street, and it's still under planning board hearing review and all that. I'm not saying it's done, but when I compare those two projects, I think the traffic studies, even if we just limit it to that, are night and day. The work that was done in Clinton Street and the investment that the developer is making at that project versus, I think the other one needs to get a little closer to that, because it's a similar sized building and it's a regional hub, and it's going to have a lot of activity there.
And that traffic study isn't fair to Shrewsbury, but it's not fair to Grafton either. We keep saying, everybody's going to come, and they will come onto Route 20 in Shrewsbury, but it's going to impact Grafton in a way that they owe it to the towns.
You're honestly right,
do
because
a better job.
If the infrastructure in Shrewsbury isn't adequate to make access to Route 20 proper, what are people going to do? They're going to find other ways to go, and it's going to be less desirable infrastructure and streets. So the better that we can do and make it right from the start, the better everyone will be. The more successful UPS will be, to be honest with you.
That's true.
That's a good point.
Just in maneuvering the trucks and in the timing, getting through the town to get to the highways. Cars are parking on the new grass on the Maple Ave fields. We built a parking lot through the police station project. We built a parking lot for the cars. There's 2 parking lots available, but they insist on parking on the grass. Is there a way to stop that? Are you going to put another fence up?
Well, so we secured some funding through the state. As soon as the governor signs the budget, we're going to increase the amount of wooden barriers along the roadway and kind of force people to go back. It's really a safety issue with the people on the fields and stuff like that.
True.
It does kill the grass, but that's the least of our concerns. But yeah, we not only that, but we do plan to make some kind of pedestrian vehicle benches access improvements across the board. Grateful for the opportunity to get the funding. It'll make the park nicer and safer for everyone.
What's interesting is just the little bit of improvement that's happened there brings us to realize, this is a pretty nice park, and you're seeing more and more people walking through there. So it's a gift that we should really do as much as we can to develop it into like park benches and so forth. I think it's really beautiful. And the truck show, not the food truck show that was there, that was a community event that was amazing, and the police department had strong participation and presence at that, and it brought out so many people, and it was a happy place to be.
It's a great night.
Yeah. So I don't know if we have time to really go into your town manager priorities, but you had an ambitious plan for your priorities. What do you do? Lay awake at night thinking about what else you need to do or what you didn't do today?
You know, I sleep well because we work hard during the day, right?
All right.
So, no, so I laid out 12 weeks of priorities this year. I've scoped it down just because of how much things have changed over the years and just trying to be a little bit more tactical. A lot of the work that I want to do directly on my own is community relations and staff culture development and things like that. So, you know, that's a look at the first, 12 weeks that we did at the, not the most recent, but a recent select board meeting. We have a lot of work to do with MBTA communities coming up and the projects that you talked about, and the select board has just reformed the Shrewsbury Development Corporation, which I'm really excited about, to get an economic development arm of the community working again.
Before you go any further, that development corporation, I get the feel that it's going to be more active. There's so much happening that they're going to have to be more active.
And that'll be good. Yeah, that'll be good because we've only been reactive and we can be proactive, and I also think we need to build a community of the business owners. And I know the people that were appointed, that's why they were appointed, because if you look at other towns, I'll use Westboro, they have a really active business community, almost like a Westboro chamber. It's not called that, but somewhat social, somewhat networking, but like it'll be good for the community, and that will also drive business to the community through those networking events and things like that. So I'm excited about the STC being recommissioned.
And Spectrum didn't show up for your select board meeting.
They did not.
They did not show up. But I loved listening to Mr. Garabedian. I thought he did a really good job articulating how probably most residents feel about Selco.
Yeah, and we know most residents feel that way, and as the board stated at their meeting, they're obligated under state law to go through this process and apply what ends up being about 7 different criteria to the license application. There's a strong preference at the federal level and at the state level for competition. They don't really ever put the municipality in the mix of that. Whenever we have our own internet service, and we treat internet service like the essential public utility that it actually is these days. So the board will continue to work their way through that process, and we have no doubt that people love Selco. That's not why they're doing that hearing.
And there were 3 people that spoke, and I don't want it to go by. One was an employee who lives in town, and he was great. And then you had a physician in town, Dr. Snook, speak. And I thought, you know what, we never hear from him. It's got to be pretty profound that he would come to a meeting and sit there till it was time and talk about that. I just thought it was really a credit to Selco that the people that spoke came out and took the time to do it. What's going to happen with the senior center? Is it growing? Is it big enough?
Yeah, I mean,
it needs more than paint.
Yeah, we looked into the senior center when we first started the municipal wide campus. It does need some minor improvements. We've improved how the space is used. We added some outdoor space for the summertime, enhanced the patio. It's one of the buildings. It needs some work. It's not just paint, but it's not as in need as some of the other buildings.
It's not as urgent as some of the other things.
As some of the other things in town.
And then the funding, those grants that we're getting. Hannah Kane sent a letter about, I don't know if it's
through the economic and housing bond bills.
Yeah,
Yep.
and in the 2025 state
and the
budget.
Yeah.
So it was $50,000 for Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services, which I thought was great. I hope it goes to, since it's in Shrewsbury and developed for Shrewsbury, I hope it's for Shrewsbury and not that we're reaching out to other towns. I think we need to do what we do well for Shrewsbury first, my opinion. $10,000 for accessibility improvements at Dean Park. I thought that was great, and I thought $10,000 is going to put a dent in it. What do you think?
Well, so we got $35,000 last year as well through a state earmark. So we're just continuing to identify specific projects that came up through the ADA assessment from a couple of years ago, and just kind of as long as we can keep the money flowing, check those projects
Yep,
off.
yep.
You know, bathroom accessibility, walkway accessibility, where sidewalks meet the road, those curb cuts and pads and everything. Just one project at a time.
And $10,000 to restore the gazebo. That gazebo is such a focal point when you drive through town. I would imagine that whoever drives through town, their eyes go to that gazebo every trip through. You just don't even realize it. So I think that was a good one. And $50,000 for environmental police to increase patrols in and around Flint Pond. So hopefully that'll be an asset for your department. And $25,000 improvements for the Maple Ave Park. So
That's what I had mentioned before.
right.
Yes.
So
Yep.
that's a good amount of money coming to Shrewsbury that sometimes we don't hear about. I didn't know, do those come from grant applications, or how does that work?
So those are what still exists in the Massachusetts budget process, pure earmarks, pure advocacy by Senator Moore and Representative Kane to provide direct funding outside of state aid to Shrewsbury. And we work with them, you know, to identify the needs, and they advocate at the state level to hold those funds in the budget process. So what will happen from this point forward is once the budget gets passed, assigned by the governor, we'll receive contracts from the state. And once we sign off on those contracts, the funds will be transferred to us, and then we'll spend them and have to report back to the state, and they have to be spent by next June. So we'll take on all these projects.
So it'll be done. It's
will be
not
done.
something
Yeah,
that will
yeah.
be put off. That's great.
Yeah, we can't delay. Yeah.
Going back to, just quickly because we're running out of time, going back to the police department on the lake, how often do you see the environmental police on the lake?
It's quite often. It's more the weekends you see them, and then like the task force that we spoke about earlier, they'll come for those events as well. But it's more than you think, because they do have all the other lakes in town. They go to Worcester a lot.
They've got a lot of ground
Yeah.
to cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just focused on the lake, and they're covering everywhere.
Mhm.
So that is true, but it's good that you have them, and that
Definitely.
you know there is funding dedicated to Flint Pond. I'd just like to say we're at the Donahue Rowing Center, and it's been actually a pleasure for me to be sitting outside in this beautiful breeze that we haven't had. So I'd like to say thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.